What are the differences between a Nikon FTN and a Nikon F2 Photomic? Stay tuned to find out. Hi, and welcome to Jules Voto's Photo Focus. In 1971, Nikon introduced its second pro-grade 35mm single-lens reflex system camera, the F2, improving on the 12-year-old Nikon F, which was introduced in 1959. There were many changes, and so let's go through them one by one. Okay, we're going to start on the top of the camera, on the top right. So let me turn these babies around. Here we have the F2 on the right, and the F on the left. Let me just get them nice and close together so we could see the differences. Okay, so first of all, you will notice on the F2 we have a plastic tip on the advance lever, where the F was an all-metal tip. So the F2 is a little more comfortable. Okay, also you will notice when we pulled this advance lever out, it uncovered a red dot. That turns the meter on, whereas on the F, if it had a meter prism like this FTN does, you had a switch on the top of the prism to turn on the meter. The reason you were able to turn the meter on with the advance lever was because the batteries on the F2 are in the camera, not in the meter prism. Okay, there's a 120-degree advance to advance the film on the F2, whereas the F, it's 136 degrees. So they shorten it just a little bit. The shutter release has been moved to the front of the camera on the F2. There were a lot of complaints on the F that it was too far back, that it had to kind of angle your finger back, so this makes it more comfortable. You will also notice the collar around the shutter release on both these cameras. The one on the F was marked A and R. A for advance, R for rewind. So when it came time to rewind film, you just turn this collar to R. They changed that quite a bit with the F2. The center position where you could see it now is normal by pressing the button, you will release the shutter. It also has a lock position to the right. You just lift it, turn it to the right, and you cannot press the shutter release. And it also has a T position, and that T position was used in conjunction with the self-timer on the front of the camera, and we'll get to that in a minute, to give you extended slow shutter speeds from 2 to 10 seconds. Okay. Also, the shutter speed dial is in the same position on both cameras, okay? But the shutter speed on the F2, in addition to those 2 to 10 seconds you get utilizing the self-timer, it also has a top speed of 1/2000th of a second on the F2. Also, the flash sync speed for electronic flash has been increased on the F2 from a 60th of a second on the F to an 80th of a second on the F2. Not a big improvement, but a slight improvement, and that is marked by a little red line here on the shutter speed dial. The other difference as far as shutter speeds with the F and the F2 is that the F2 allows you from 1/80th up to 1/2000th of a second to set speeds in between. Okay, so if you need to center the meter needle in the viewfinder, normally on an F you would turn the aperture ring, and that could be set between stops. On the F2 you could also set the shutter speed between stops from 1/80th to 1/2000th of a second. All right, now let's go to the front of the camera. Let's go back to the front of the camera where we originally started. when you first started this video. Okay, and we will see, let me get these babies lined up here. First, you will see the self-timer. Really, the only difference here is that they added a plastic tip to the dial, and also gave an indication of the time speeds here. You will see 2, 4, 8, and 10. Okay, also could set the self-timer for those increments. Above that, we have the depth of field preview button on the F2, same as on the F, except they put a plastic tip on that as well. But one of the big improvements, one of the major improvements on this camera on the F2 is that now to lock up the mirror, you press down on the depth of field preview button and work this lever back here. That locks up the mirror at any time. All right, on the F, the mirror lockup was on the side here, but once you turn the mirror lockup, you had to press the shutter release to lock up the mirror, losing a frame. Okay, and every time you wanted to lock up the mirror after taking a picture, you had to do that. So this is a huge improvement. Also, you will notice the PC outlet for flash. On the F, it's kind of off to the side a little bit. On the F2, it's around front. The reason they did that was sometimes your neck strap could get caught and pull out the sync cord. Another thing on the F2, it is threaded. The PC outlet is threaded. Now, in a late model Nikon F, there were 3 improvements that we see on the F2, and those cameras came out in 1972 through the end of production. I did a video on that, what is a Nikon F Apollo, so you could look in the description below for a video on that, and that just explains some of those differences between the FTN and the FTN or the F Apollo. Also, you will notice the F2 is a little more rounded. It's not as angular on the body, where it's kind of sharp edges on the F. It's smoother, more rounded on the F2. That includes the mirror box. As you can see here, how rounded that is compared to the squared off on the F. It just makes the camera a little more comfortable to hold. Also, the mirror on the F2 has been lengthened so as to not give you any cutoff with long lenses. Okay, so let's go look at the back of the camera. All right, we're going to turn this around. Turn this one around. And very similar, prism release, same position on both cameras. The F2 added a film box end holder, so you could remember what kind of film you had in the camera. You know, let's just come back here up top for 1 minute, and let's look at the rewind. Rewind's basically the same, except the one on the F2 will lift up. Also, you will notice on the side of the meter prism is a connection for your Nikon flash, which would give you a ready light in the viewfinder. On both photomic prisms, the ISO or ASA goes from 6 to 6400. It's the same on both. All right, now another, and probably the biggest improvement, in my opinion, on these cameras is the back, okay? On the Nikon F, you had to remove the back in order to load film. Kind of a little difficult, especially in a crowd, outdoors, not easy to do. The F2 has a hinge back. Just turn the lock. The lock is in the same position as on the F, but the back just springs open. Now, if you do need to remove the back, let's say you wanted to put on a 250 exposure back, you can easily remove the back on the F2. Okay, but for normal loading, you don't have to do that. Now, I have a video on both the F, one on the F, one on the F2. I have one on each of their accessories and meters. I'm going to put a link in the description below to those videos. So now let's look at the bottom of both cameras. Here we have the F with the back release to open the back, a tripod socket, and a film speed reminder dial. The F2 has the back release in the same spot, but you will notice a battery compartment here. Again, because the batteries are in the camera, not in the meter. All right, we're going to get to the meter prism in a second. Here we also have the tripod socket. We have the rewind button. On the F, it was on the top, on that collar around the shutter release. The F2 has it in a more conventional spot. And here are two connections for the motor drive. And here's another big difference. The F took motor drives, however, the camera had to be modified by Nikon to take the motor drive. The F2, they just attached to the bottom of the camera. Okay, and let's come right back up here to the top. Okay, and you will notice the Photomic heads, the Photomic meter prisms. All right, much smaller on the F2. And big reason for that is that the batteries are inside the camera, not in the prism. Where on the FTN, the batteries are in the prism, and actually a little difficult to get to because you have to remove the prism to change the batteries from the underside. And of course, this was the end for the F as far as meter prisms. This was the most advanced one. Came out in 1968, late 68, 1969, and of course was the top of the line meter prism until this camera was discontinued in late 73, early 74. This was the first meter prism for the F2, the Photomic, known as a DP1, and there were several others culminating in 1977 with the DP12, which when attached to a camera makes the camera an F2AS. Okay, so that's about it for the differences between the Nikon FTN and the Nikon F2 Photomic. Please look in the description below. I have put links to my videos on the F and the F2. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I come out with a new video every Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So thanks for watching.